now be recorded.
Great. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th order, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, 30A, subsection 18, the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order concerning imposition on strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Meetings in the town of Upton are being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. And with that, we're opening the Board of Selectmen meeting of Tuesday, November 17th. The first item on the agenda today is public comment. We'll then go through meeting minutes, as well as go through invited guests, as well as looks like 8 or 10 discussion items. So with that, I will open it up for any public comment on any of the topics we've got planned for tonight, or any public comments in general on any topic.
To Chairman Simus, Lynn Haggerty.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. I viewed the town meeting. Did we get an appraisal before we purchased the land for 0 Grove Street?
There was no appraisal required because it's a special purchase, special interest purchase. Derek, do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure, happy to do that. So, as the chairman pointed out, an appraisal is not required under the procurement laws because this is considered what is known as a unique acquisition, which is based upon the vision that was approved at town meeting 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other public comment, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Christine Scott. I wanted to thank you for all the efforts that went into the special town meeting.
Wonderful. A lot of people here contributed to that, so thank you very much, Ms. Scott. We appreciate it, and it was certainly a lot of work by a lot of folks to pull it together, and it went well. We hope for everybody. So thank you for that. Any other public comments, please? Okay, hearing none, we will move into our invited guests. We have a pole relocation hearing. Do we need to, Derek, open up a public hearing on that? Okay, is there something particular that needs to be read to do that?
No, we can just go ahead and open. Sandy, you don't have anything specific to be read, right? We can just open the public hearing. You're on mute. Sandy, you're on mute.
Yes, to open the meeting, and it is attached to the agenda on a link.
Yeah.
If you hit the link, it'll show.
Yeah, I've got it. Please be advised that the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing the petition of National Grid to install 3-phase overhead power from P65 to riser pole 65-1 on customer property at 25 Maple Street to support pole 65. A 45-foot Deo push brace, page 65 to 89, is to be installed approximately 15 feet southeast on town property on November 17, 2020 at 7:05 p.m. and it's a virtual meeting. With that, the hearing is now open.
I believe the caller from National Grid is present.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, great. Go ahead and please introduce yourself and go ahead. Thanks.
Yes, my name is Albert Galvin, design engineer, National Grid Hopedale office. I'm here representing our engineer on this particular job. And it looks like as far as the town's concerned, the primary focus would be on the push brace that's being adjusted to approximately 15 feet. Still on town property, however, to support that that pole at the street side, pole 65, and the weight of the 3-phase cable that's going to be going approximately 150 feet to the next pole in on the customer's property. So the push brace was the strongest, more stable way to support that that pole from leaning or damaging any cables down the line.
And is is that an existing pole there that's right in front of is that a house on 25 Maple Street?
No, it's a business. I believe it's a warehouse or a manufacturing type business. So they're running a new 3-phase underground service. Looks like the back of the building. 65 is a current pole on the street itself, but we're putting a new pole behind this customer's property so they can then run their underground to that new pole.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so it's that pole, that brace is being put in to support work that they're having done on their property.
Yeah, well, the support brace, yeah, it's going on the existing town pole, 65, that's by the railroad tracks there. Yeah. And then we're coming into the customer's lot about 150 feet with a brand new pole, and that'll be anchored by its own line. And then from there, the customer will go underground to their business.
Got it. No, that's perfect. I would just want to make sure we weren't surprising somebody by putting an extra telephone pole in their property, but that's not the case, so that's great. I'm good with this, Steve. Maureen, I don't know if you have any questions.
None for me.
Just a quick question. Is there currently 3-phase power? This is coming in from Lower Hartford Ave. So is there currently 3-phase power there now? Is this just a matter of extending it onto the railroad property? Or is this the situation where you have to actually bring 3-phase down the road to get to pole 65?
Nope, there is 3-phase power there currently, running 565 down 66, all the way down the line there. It's we're just branching off that main street to the customer's property so that they can access that power.
Okay, very good. And you don't foresee any issues with the road, having to close the road for any reason to perform that work?
They may, see by the plans, I'm not sure if they're replacing pole 65 or not. Let's see if I have access to their construction job here. No, it looks like there's no call to replace 65. So the crew will be able to. They'll probably have one officer there, so that the truck is protected. People can see it. It looks like it's on the smaller side of a road, but there'll be some protection there for the crew as they put in that push brace that we're talking about. And then they'll looks like they're adding some fusing for the 3-phase lines on that pole 65 as well. So they'll be able to wave on oncoming traffic by them as they go.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I have no other questions.
I will take a motion.
Brett, this is Steve Byrne. I was actually, you're going to take public comment or questions on this? It is a public hearing, right?
Yes, go ahead.
So this isn't really any other residents. This is the Grafton Upton Railroad that's requesting this. So I guess I have a bunch of questions because they've been pretty much doing whatever they want in the town for several years. Now they have a public hearing and nobody's asking any questions. They need the town's approval to get 3-phase power to pretty much expand and do whatever they want there. Without this 3-phase power, the town actually could have power to restrict some of what they're doing. So I guess my question for you is, how does this 3-phase power expand their operations? Is this a new use? Why should the town you guys are just sitting there acting like this isn't anything. This is the railroad that you guys have the power to actually have a discussion with them when they're asking you a question. They need the public hearing to do this, and you guys are acting like this is nothing. It's a little concerning.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it a new use? Anyone could just get 3-phase power if they want to. You guys aren't concerned about this at all. This is health and safety of the community. I see Chief Bradley on here. I mean, these guys are doing whatever you want. They have a public hearing to, up to abutters, which they've never had to do. And there's no questions, no comments, you're just going to roll over and not do anything about that? That's crazy.
Okay. Is there a specific question we can answer for you?
Yeah, what's the purpose of the three-phase power? How does it expand their operations? What's the new use?
Okay, great. Hold on. Derek, do you know what the plan is?
So I'm looking at the drawings that were submitted, and it looks like they're running this three-phase power to the new building that's already been constructed. The fire chief, the fire captain, the building commissioner, and our DPW director have been working with the railroad on their expansion project. We haven't had any conversations up until this point about the need for an additional power source. This is the first time that I'm hearing of this absolute need. But if you go by the property, you'll see there's approximately a 10,000 square foot building that's already been erected. And there's approximately going to be 10 to 12 silos that they're going to use to store chemicals that they're already bringing onto the site, but they're just going to increase their storage capacity. So those are the expansion plans of the railroad. As I presented in the past board, they also plan to install 18 additional spurs that they'll be used for quote unquote parking of their tankers. So those are the different plans that the railroad has. The Department of Environmental Protection has given them the permits that they need to comply with any state regulations. They don't need a local building permit. They're very clear about that, but they are willing to work with the town to make sure that they meet all the life safety requirements that would be required like any other business here in town.
Thanks, Derek. Other questions, Mr. Byrne?
So Derek, is this a new use? Does anyone check to see if this fits within the railroad guidelines that they've been hiding under? They've never had to come and send me as an abutter for a public hearing. This seems a little different than everything else. That building went up, and you guys can sit in here and think that they're working with everyone, which isn't the case. That's not reality going on here. They're expanding like crazy under your noses, and I know there's federal preemption and all that, but this is different. There's something different here that the town has a say, and the leaders of the town are not doing anything.
The
chemicals are new. Is that correct?
The project that was presented to the town, their presentation is that it's not a new use, it's an expanded use of what they are currently operating under. Again, like I mentioned earlier, they plan on bringing in the chemicals that they say they're already bringing in, except they believe that this is a more safe and efficient manner. So to answer your question, Steve, I don't think it's a new use. I definitely would agree with you. It's certainly an expansion. It's a very large expansion across their entire footprint. I don't believe they'll have any more square footage left after this expansion to do anything else but what they're already proposed. And you're absolutely right. The railroad can invoke preemption, which they have in this case. You bring up a good point about power, and they've never mentioned they've never mentioned to us up until this point that they have to expand their power productivity on this site up until now.
Yeah, just to be clear, Brett, Steve, and Mr. Winnell, like I've been living here since this has happened, so this has been nobody on this call or on this has ever heard me complain about this. There's something different about this, that they need some sort of approval from the town, which has never ever been the case before. And I just sat and watched you guys talk about it like it was some residents asking for a pole to be moved, which is not the case for this. You guys don't approve this, and all of a sudden you have leverage. You have a conversation that can be had. Maybe the police and fire can get a little more access and understanding of what's going on there without all this preemption that they do whatever they want and then they, come back and say these small things that, that are making you guys feel better about yourself. But this is a huge health and safety issue. They're bringing chemicals in now on trains. They're now going to be setting and sitting in our town, waiting for an accident to happen. There's very little oversight from the fire. This is a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Derek, do you want to explain to Mr. Byrne the relationship between the fire chief and the inspections that have been happening, and the relationship between the safety professionals in town and the railroad business?
Sure. So, yeah, I would say that it's an understatement to think that the railroad is not working with the town safety officials. We have bi-weekly meetings with the railroad to understand what their needs are. Like I pointed out earlier, between the fire chief, the DPW director, myself, the captain of the fire department, who's an engineer, and our building commissioner are in regular communications about their expansion. Now, to your point, Steve, I don't think that, certainly if there are questions that need to be answered, if the board chooses, they could delay this approval. I do think, though, ultimately, given the preemption laws, the railroad could counter and require us to approve this, because we would be, in essence, stopping their operations. So, I think that if there are concerns out there, we can certainly delay the approval and seek those answers, maybe have one of the railroad representatives attend. But I can assure everyone who's listening, and certainly assure you, that the town is paying very close attention. Like I said, we have bi-weekly meetings to discuss this very operation. So we are very much attuned to what their intentions are on this site.
Derek, I'm not doubting that at all. I'm just saying something here is different. They require your approval. They're asking for abutters. There's a public hearing. There's something different here, or else it would be like everything else where they just did it and, let you guys know what was going on. So, I wanted to make sure my voice was heard. You guys can, you guys are going to do whatever you want, but this is a missed opportunity if you don't take advantage of that.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could just speak for a minute or two. My question, let me just talk for a minute about single phase power and three phase power, and then we can kind of circle back to these poll hearings. In my tenure on the board, we probably had half a dozen different poll hearings, and they can range from, let's just say, Chestnut Street, where they expanded the pole line, went over the tracks, and came down Chestnut Street in order to build those three homes, the new homes on Chestnut. So poll hearings, maybe we had another poll hearing over on Mechanic Street. There was a lot of argument back and forth as far as which side of the road people wanted poles on and whatnot, anchors and things of that nature. I think we ask a reasonable amount of questions to protect the public. In this situation, I asked the question, are they expanding three-phase power? And the answer was no, they're not. Three-phase is already on the street. So again, this is on Lower Hartford Ave. Three-phase power is pretty unusual. We had a tenant once that wanted three-phase power. Our building, or our shop that we work out of, is up on Milford Street, up at top of the hill, 141. There's no three-phase power there. Why, I was surprised to find out that there is three-phase power here. So in most areas of town, there would not be three-phase power. My guess is the reason there's three-phase in that area is because of the hat shop. They probably had three-phase power down there way back in the day. Three-phase power is usually used to run machinery, saws. A lot of times we had a tenant that wanted to be able to cut marble and granite. Automotive shops, a lot of times will have three-phase power, tire machines, welders, compressors, things of that nature. So again, three-phase power is something that I believe it's more economical for a company to run. So again, that's my understanding of what this is about. I'm not looking at this as a large expansion. I will agree there has been a large-scale expansion of what has happened at the railroad. But again, I don't know how much that's under our purview. So I'll defer that back to you, Mr. Chairman. But I just wanted to say my piece again. I know in the automotive sector, three-phase power is something that, there is tooling, saws, generators, again, even tire machines, automotive tools that can run on three-phase power. And it is rather unusual to have it at your location. So.
Okay. Go ahead, Maureen.
Well, I'd have to agree with Mr. Byrne. I thought, and I apologize, that it was just a customer that wanted to extend electricity to their home. I would really like to have the railroad come in and explain just what they're doing, what they're going to do, and after what Derek said with the chemicals and all of that, I don't tend to agree with just passing this tonight.
Okay, so just for people's edification, Steve, I think you did a great job explaining it. So I also looked up a little bit about why a business would want three-phase power, and it just says single-phase power is used in most homes and small businesses because it's relatively simple and inexpensive to install. Commercial and industrial businesses with greater electricity needs prefer three-phase power because it's more efficient and less expensive to operate. So it certainly doesn't seem surprising to me, given the expansion and the construction of the new building and the 13 new spurs, the additional storage and the power needs required to run a new building of that size, that they would need to upgrade their power. So I don't know what it is that we think they would be doing that makes this different than any other business that would be looking for three-phase power. I'm certainly supportive with answering any questions that any member of the public has at any point. And if we're not able to answer them, certainly we can bring the folks from the railroad in to talk about it. They've been in to talk about their expansion. They've been in to talk about the building. They've invited us for inspections as a board, and certainly the safety and fire departments and all the inspection officials that need to participate and are allowed to participate have been doing that. I've personally been in meetings at Town Hall where they've gone through the drawings and talked about what they're doing and the chemicals and et cetera. And so, that is something that they have been transparent about. And so, it really is up to us to say, if there are questions that folks, whether they're abutters or anybody in town, frankly, have an interest in having answered, then we absolutely will get those answers. There's no reason we wouldn't get the answers. And to your point, this is a leverage point where we can get answers. I don't feel like I've ever had a question that I haven't had answered, but that doesn't mean that's the case for everybody. So I would, again, open it up. I know, Maureen, you have something you want to say, but also, Mr. Byrne, if you have particular questions that we can prepare for and make sure we get the answers to, that would be great.
Yeah, Brett, I'm not. This is by no means trying to start a war with them, and by any means trying to stack up legal and putting up a fight here. But this one, to me, I do project development. This one seems like there is something we should be asking about. What is different here? Why? Maybe it's just because National Grid has to do something on the pole, and then that's just really an open shut. I don't have that answer, but for me to get an abutter for a public hearing when not once, I've lived here longer than the railroad has been there, not once have I been asked for, had a public hearing for anything that they've done over there. So this seems different to me. And I'm not a lawyer at all. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just, there are things here that, you know, the expanding of operations, the new use. I have no idea, Derek, if those chemicals are part of railroad operations. That, you know, I don't know. I think that when we went with them with the pellets and, you know, went after them with the commerce stuff, like, I don't know. Maybe there's something else here that they're expanding and they're doing something, you know, too quickly. I have no idea. But my whole purpose here was just to make sure that people were aware of this, that this is different. Something is different with this one. That's all.
Go ahead, Maureen.
Oh, help me understand this. I mean, Steve, you had said, you had asked the question that they already had a three-phase power there. And this request is for National Grid to install a three-phase.
Maureen, National Grid can answer this, but three-phase power is on the street. I think that's what Steve Metallian was mentioning. So not every street has three-phase power. If you look at a pole and look at the way top, if you see three wires and it's three-phase power, not every street has that. So for it to be on the street, I think is what Mr. Metallian was referring to, that he was surprised that three-phase power was on the street.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It does not pass in front of, you know, most businesses. You really have to find where it, you know, if you wanted, for instance, in my situation, if I wanted to bring three-phase power to my shop, I would have to pay to have it, you know, if it's a quarter of a mile down the street or half mile down the street, I would have to pay that charge to have it brought to the property. So again, it's at the street. It's actually at the pole, you know, abutting where they are. Again, that doesn't discount, Mr. Byrne, you brought up some good questions, and I think it's definitely an opportunity for us to ask those questions. You know, my guess, again, is going to be that's going to be something along the lines of a pump. Again, if we're talking about chemicals, maybe it's a pump that needs to be run to offload, offload some sort of a rail car into, you know, perhaps tractor trailers or something along those lines.
Yeah, before we go.
Just to add, I obviously I was the designer that worked on the job specifically, but pulling up some documents that are associated with it, it does list it as a second service, so there is an existing service to the prime building. This would be a second service for the customer, you know, fed from the back side of the building this time. I would assume the first one's maybe from the opposite side. And their load sheet specifies fire pumps, compressors, motors that they have to feed. That's where the three-phase comes into play. It's a new bulk distribution center, and they're adding in an electric fire pump. There's some equipment that goes along with that. That's where the load distribution went higher and required three-phase service. But it is a second service to an existing company. We're not bringing in all new three-phase down the street.
Great. So Maureen, Steve, how would you like to proceed? That's Mr. Metallian and Mr. Cornell.
Yes, I'd like to, I think at this point, I think it makes good sense to continue the hearing and ask a member or owner or whatnot from the railroad to come in and kind of give us a little better understanding of exactly what the expansion of service will be. But again, I think that, yes, this is an opportunity for us to, take them to task, but at the same time, I don't think it's really, I don't want to be an obstruction to the process, especially if there's already three-phase on the property. But again, I'm perfectly comfortable postponing the decision until we have more information at hand.
Okay, it sounds like you and Maureen both agree. So Sandy, is there something we need to do other than to just say that we're going to continue this hearing until further notice? You have to say a specific date.
That you would just be recessing the meeting until the next meeting or whatever date you want. Kelly?
Okay.
December 1st.
December 1st.
I think recess isn't you to you continued the public hearing to another time. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of that word. You want to make a motion to continue the public meeting to maybe the next selectmen's meeting.
It sounds like that's December 1st, Eric.
That's right.
Okay, I'll
Yes.
take a motion.
I'll move that we continue this public hearing until the next meeting on December 1st.
I would recommend you include a time.
To start at 7 p.m.
Second the motion, Stephen Metellian, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Next, we
Eric
have.
Kelly, is there any sort of a posting requirement for that continuance? Is this enough period of time that we would need to postpone it till the 1st? Would
No,
we have to re-advertise?
No, you can definitely continue the public hearing. That's why I recommend that you did the time, because the abutters have already been notified that the public hearing was tonight. And so anyone interested should be participating tonight. And then you just made the motion that you're continuing it until 7 p.m. on December 1st. So all abutters would be interested. And then of course it will be on the website. And Sandy, we might just want to take that and put it on the website for December 1 sooner rather than later. At least the public hearing portion.
Okay, great. Tax classification hearing. Derek, do you want to open this one up?
So the tax classification hearing is historically presented by the Board of Assessors. So I'm going to turn this over to Kelly. I think she's going to present on behalf of the board.
Good evening, everyone. So we have two of my board members here as well. I don't see them right now, but Bill Taylor and Jim Earl are here. So as we've done in the past, I'm going to, although it's a little bit different, I'm going to explain a little bit of the how we got to tax or what the tax recap is looking like, and I'll be doing that in a second by sharing the screen, and we'll just be going through the numbers. First of all, I'd like to thank our department coordinator, or actually assistant assessor, I gotta correct that, Tracy Toddy, for all her hard work over the past year and making sure we have all our numbers correct together when it comes to values and submissions to the state. And I'd also like to thank Kenny Coster, our finance director, for all his work in getting the recap together to allow us to have this presentation tonight. As you might be aware, that we need to have this tax classification hearing, and it's mostly for the Board of Assessors to, it's the Board of Selectmen's decision whether or not we want to have a split tax rate. And I think based on the history of the town, as we normally do that, and I'll just go through the numbers on the tax recap just for informational purposes, and then we ask for you to take a vote about the classification. So in past years, I normally give you a document that that I hand to you, and this is normally page 4 of it. And so I'm going to do the same thing that I've done in the past and show that this is page 4, which is of a tax recap, and this is the showing all the appropriations that have been voted at town meeting over the last fiscal year. So you'll see the town meeting, that our annual town meeting we had on June 23rd, and then of course our town meeting we just had last week. And we voted to raise and appropriate 24 million. I knew I was going to do that tonight. $24,336,686 and then there was other appropriations from free cash and other. So that figure is a figure that you're going to want to keep in mind as we move through the pages. Page 3 of the recap shows any of the receipts that we expect. We show the actual receipts that we receive from fiscal 20, and then what our estimated receipts are going to be for fiscal 2021. You'll notice that we pretty much did conservative estimating for 2021 because, as we all know, we're involved in a pandemic, and we're not quite sure what we're actually going to be receiving from in tax revenue. So we've conservatively budgeted these numbers. So that being said, the appropriation that we need to raise, which is column B through C on that last page I just showed you of the 28 million. I'm just going to go through this really fast and taking out our estimated and showing the cherry sheet offsets and CPA. The cherry sheets charges showing right here. The estimated receipts of the from the cherry sheet, and then our local receipts, which is this amount is the amount that we're budgeting and what we're thinking for enterprise funds. And then monies that we appropriated from free cash and other available funds. If you remember, this is the amount that we voted to take out of stabilization to fund the school committee, the school budget, I should say. And then this is what we determined to be our estimated receipts, other revenue sources. And this is the amount that we need to raise from the tax levy, the 28,673,553. So then I'm going to bring it to, oh, wait a minute, maybe I had the wrong number there. No, I take it back. It's this number, the 21,855,416 is what we need to raise from real estate and property tax levy. So that being said, this is the front page, and this determines what the preliminary, what we're anticipating. Keep in mind, all these numbers are preliminary. We're going to be hopefully submitting it to the state within the next couple of days and hopefully get an approval. But that being said, with the amount of money, the 21 million that we were looking at and what we have to raise gives us the tax rate of 1660. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bill so he can talk about the valuations for a second. You're muted, Bill.
There we go. And so the total valuation for all property, residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property for this year is $1,316,000,000, which is about a 6.5% increase over last year. And that is made up of new growth and also increases in value as a result of market forces. As has been the case for a long, long time, most of our property is residential. It makes up just over 95%, 95.5%, and then the commercial, industrial, and personal property makes up roughly 5.5%. And so one of the things that we have the option that we're talking about tonight would be to try, or we can shift some of the property tax burden from the residential to the commercial, industrial, and personal property. But because we're so heavily weighted towards residential, the only way to make any meaningful change to the residential rate for individual taxpayers is to make substantial rate increases to the businesses. And so as a result of that, our recommendation is the same as it has been in the past, and that is that we have one rate in Upton for both commercial or residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property.
Great. Thank you. 1660 seems like it's, what, 40, 50, 60 cents lower than last year's tax rate. So that seems promising. It sounds like valuations went up. So any questions, Maureen or Steve, or what questions do you have?
No, I would tend to go with the single rate due to the fact that our commercial valuation is so low, 5.5%. We have to really raise their rate. So, and we're trying to bring commercial industrial into town.
Yeah, I would definitely echo those thoughts. Bill, you had said 95.5% residential, and then you mentioned 5.5%. Is it, I can't see the numbers, they're too small in front of me. Is it 95.5 and 4.5% commercial industrial?
Let me get this exact, I'm sorry, it's 94.5 and 5.5.
I see. Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Just
And I
add up
wanted
to
to make,
1%, that's all.
yep, I wanted to make one other observation, and that is, as has been the case in prior years, there is some property owners, the valuation has gone up substantially, and notwithstanding that the rate has gone down 62 cents or 56 cents, there will be some taxpayers that see increases in their taxes. I think by and large, most will see no increase or a little increase.
Yeah, Derek and I did a little math today, and I think what it came out with was we're maintaining level services, and on average, right? So to your point, Bill, some will see an increase, some will see even. There may be some that see a decrease depending on where they are, albeit small. But overall, it looks like the overall tax bill maintaining level services is going up by 0.8 of 1%. So 0.8% increase in the average tax bill, which is remarkable given that we're maintaining level services. And I think that's a testament to all the work that the finance committee and the town manager and the finance department that was newly created have been doing and are doing, and grant writing by the department heads to offset a lot of our costs and expenses and to save the town money. So a lot of work by everybody's involved in doing what we can to maintain services, but also be very responsible in how we're spending people's money. Any other questions, comments?
Oh, the only comment I was going to make was I remember back in the budget building process or back around town meeting, we also had some money roll off of debt. And I don't remember the exact number. I don't know if it was 31 cents or 41 cents or some number rolled off on the assessor's page or thereabouts. So I think that also helps with regard to that rate dropping. And the only other comment I was going to make is, especially in light of COVID, I think, we've got to be very, very sensitive to the, very small market that we have with regard to small business. So certainly a singular tax rate is favorable for business.
Yeah.
And that's it.
All right. Any other comments, Maureen or Steve?
So Brett, there does need to be a motion to approve a single tax rate. And then in the past, I've usually brought up a piece of paper for the selectmen to sign. But this year, for the first time, I believe you guys need to go onto what is called the state system known as Gateway. So I will be assigning each of you a username and password that will be sent to your emails. And you'll have to establish an account with Gateway and go in and sign the LA5, which is what this document here is on the screen. So I'll be, once you take the vote, I'll be in touch with you in the next day or two to get that worked out.
Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, Maureen and Steve, I'll take a motion.
Hey, Brett, can I just mention one thing, Brett?
Sorry.
This is Steve Byrne again.
Oh,
Look, I just
okay.
mentioned one thing, just due to, I'm on the finance committee now. I've spent years on the finance committee, and one thing that always gets confusing is when if you guys are going to announce this, I'm assuming, Derek, you guys will make some sort of announcement, but I'm assuming most of you know this, but the way you want to communicate this is showing someone how it's going to affect them with their average assessment, their average tax bill. The tax rate is really not a good gauge because of the increase and decrease in the assessed values. So if you guys want to make the point about how this is level service and your bill isn't going up, you want to show someone, I know what my what I pay for my tax bill. So you tell me that my tax rate went down, I'm going to assume in my head that my taxes are going to go down. So how you communicate this is going to make a difference, I guess, is my point here. You know, you want to show your average assessment is going to go up, your tax rate went down, so your bill is going to be the same. So just a little bit of caution for that. That's all. I'm assuming you guys are aware of that.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler, you want to talk about the Cemetery Commission?
I think we need to make a motion still, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, I thought we had done that. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve the single tax rate for FY21 as presented in this meeting. Stephen Mattelli, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Thank you. Cemetery Commission.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Thanks, Glenn.
I have a short presentation, PowerPoint presentation to present, and not sure whether I'm in control of it or Kelly's in control of it.
I'm in control of it, so I'll move it along as we go.
Okay, fine. We've spent as a several years, many years, 20 years or more, watching the property in town be sold off, which might otherwise be used for cemetery purposes. And it occurred to us recently that we're really down to one parcel in town that is suitable and available for cemetery use. And what we're going to see here is an outline of what it is and how we got there and why we're there. We have about 200 lots remaining in what we call Section 41, which is the unused section by the garage in Lakeview Cemetery. There may be as many as 100 lots remaining for sale in Section 42, which is the currently active section to the north of the garage and the back of the cemetery. And they're disappearing fairly quickly. Currently, the number of parcels which might be suitable, land parcels which might be suitable for burial, is rapidly disappearing. There are really only 2 parcels we would consider at this point. And we think it's important that we take action now, because any development of a future cemetery is a project of 10 or more years based on what we hear from professional associates at the annual meetings and people in the state government. Could go quicker, but it's very unlikely. I think you can go ahead now, Kelly. The town does continue to grow, and I think we got ahead of ourselves a little bit. That's all right. Next slide, Kelly. And why don't we go one more? Okay. There's been a lot of work done previously, and I wanted to recognize the previous members of the Cemetery Commission who actually started this project off maybe 30 years ago. Robert Richard, Bill Sadler, Dick Randall, unfortunately, are all deceased. Leo Lamanuzzi was a predecessor of mine, and Joseph McMahon was a predecessor to me. But they are both living, as far as I know, healthy. They did quite a bit of work in time past to identify parcels which could be candidates, and in fact, we did some work to acquire a couple of parcels which basically fell on its head and went nowhere. All we did is convince a landowner that they should develop it as a residential estate property or subdivision. Next slide, Kelly. Right now we have, over the last 20 years, been watching the change in usage, and it continues to go up every year. Right now, we are selling about 19 lots, maybe a few more at this point. This year's been a little more active than the last few years, so 19 to 20 lots a year, and we project based on that. Next slide, Kelly. We would have about 16 years to go before we ran out of parcels we can sell, lots we can sell to the public. Curiously enough, one of the areas we looked at was the land immediately to the south of the existing cemetery, which is privately owned. And over the years, my predecessors and myself have made contact with the present owner and offered to negotiate a deal with them for future use. So far, it's been totally non-responsive. They definitely are not interested in working with us at this time, and we didn't feel there was any purpose in pursuing it as an eminent domain acquisition, so we basically wrote that one off as a future attraction someday, maybe, if the family changes their mind. They know we're interested, and if they are interested too, we can talk. So far, nothing. Next slide, Kelly. So right now we are we have looked at 2 parcels, which only one really qualifies for consideration. We did a variety of research studies over the years, and quite a few recently. What we're looking for is parcels that are fairly flat, dry, with light central location, accessible from the road. And we ultimately identified, I guess, about 28 sites that met this criteria. Unfortunately, after we got into the details, most of them were unavailable, either because of ground impediments or ship or competition for development. Next slide, Kelly. These are the things that we kind of looked at when we were evaluating the parcels we chose. Street access with reasonable frontage, had to be within town limits. We wanted something 10 acres or more, rectangular geometry. We did look at valuation and possibility that we could actually buy it or acquire it. Next slide, Kelly. Right now, our primary target is a 10-acre, 12-acre parcel on Westboro Road. Right now, it's assessed at about $284,000. Town happens to own it as a result of a tax taking, and you can see that it's has street frontage and is rectangular just to the right of that parcel A. Caption. There's a slide to the side of it, which is a flyover overview that shows you roughly the same spot. And we are ultimately going to ask the Board of Selectmen, which currently are the owners of the parcel, to transfer a title to the Cemetery Commission so that we can begin a process of planning and development with the assistance of the state cemetery people. Next slide, Kelly. The only other parcel that's even suitable ground-wise for use as a cemetery happens to be property up on the top of Mendon Hill, just east of the old Brooks's Dairy Farm. It was Brooks's property at one time. Parcel of about 80 acres, currently owned by the Nato family. And it is ideal in one sense. It has plenty of street frontage. It's somewhat flat, but not totally. It has an impediment of high groundwater, which is typical of hilltops in Upton for some reason. I can't figure out why, but it is. And the price is kind of stiff, so we put that as a unlikely candidate. The only other parcel that could be used for cemetery purposes at this point. For that, I guess we go to the next slide, Kelly. Questions and answers, if you have any.
Yeah, thanks for all the work, Len. I know over the years you've done a tremendous amount of work, not only in sort of servicing and working with the public, but also in all the documentation and tracking and computer systems associated with managing and maintaining all of the cemetery plots. So thank you for all the time, effort, and energy you've put into that over the years. I know it's been a tremendous amount of work, so thank you.
Well, it was, and it's been worth it. It pays off for me too.
Great. Yeah. Do you get a
Explain why
discount?
some other time, but at this point, the real need is to have a plan for future expansion.
Yeah. How
It's
much
not at this point, but we need to preserve the last parcel in town that is suitable for this purpose.
the how many years, based on your experience of capacity, would the site on Westboro Road gain us? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 50 years?
Well, is that a question on how long it would take to develop, or how long it would be useful after it was put into service?
So it sounds like we have about a capacity of 16 to 20 years worth of capacity with our current cemetery. How many years worth of
Maybe
capacity?
optimistic, but yes.
Okay, so how many additional years would we gain by buying 10 acres?
I'm going to say probably 80 to 100 years.
Okay,
we-
that was my
The
question.
more is how much of it will be wasted due to ground features that we can't develop.
Yeah.
Based on what we know after walking over it,
Yeah.
I'm going to get 80% utilization out of it.
Sure. Okay, good. That was my only question. Maureen, Steve.
Okay, Maureen, I guess I'll go first. Mr. Fowler, I'm aware of 3 cemeteries in town. On Memorial Day, we typically visit the 3 cemeteries, and then we have the parade from Memorial School downtown. So the cemetery on Grove Street, and also the cemetery, which I understand does not belong to the town, the one that is on Maple Avenue.
Correct.
Is there any talk, or is there any room to expand upon those 2 footprints, in order to, as opposed to a scratch build in a brand new cemetery, is there any opportunity to expand on those 2 cemeteries? It would appear that there may be
taking them one of
land
the
around.
Grove Street, no, that's a historical archive. I don't think the historical commission would grant us permission to go messing with that very much. However, the one on Maple Avenue is up for debate. They have recently invited us to discuss a transfer on ownership, actually, because they're running out of funds. We have taken their offer under advisement, but haven't gone anywhere with it yet. It does offer a significant potential for future development, because they do have quite a bit of spare land now. And we're looking at it, but we haven't made any decisions about it yet.
Do you know roughly how big, say, from an acreage standpoint, how big would that particular cemetery be? Would that be 5 acres or more?
Well, as compared to Lakeview is 9.5 acres in its entirety. Some of that wraps around the pond out in front of the Upton Road area and the boat launch and all of that. Compared to that, Maplewood is a little bit larger in total size. It includes a pond, it includes a open field, it includes some pine grove area, and probably is, I'm going to say 80% used at this point in time for the part that is used as a cemetery. The open field has never been touched for cemetery purposes, but could be in some future date. And I have not yet made an estimate of what that could produce. It's something to consider, sure.
Well, that's great. It's a great question, Steve. Certainly, we'd want to look at and understand all of those options before we make a recommendation around any kind of a purchase or transfer.
Right. Yeah, that's what my thoughts were. And I guess just one other quick question is getting back to Maplewood Cemetery. I take it then that that property goes to the corner of the intersection of the two roads?
It's bounded by the Pleasant Street and Maple Avenue corner and runs up Maple Avenue to the cul-de-sac. I forgot the name of it right at the moment. Across from the pellet plant there.
It would appear to me, at least in when I see
Oh, yeah.
short run, that may, between those two cemeteries, that may take care of, existing needs then for maybe 20, 25 years, no?
It might. We haven't done any real analysis on it yet, but you're probably right. I'd be willing to go along with a guess at that.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Maureen?
Until we work out the terms for transfer and a few other things, we don't know what we're talking about there yet, but it's always a possibility.
And then just curious, other than any potential land transfer for land that the town has an interest in, is the Cemetery Commission operate independently of the Board of Selectmen, or how does that work, Derek, in terms of if the Cemetery Commission wants to acquire or expand land?
Well, as you know, the Cemetery Commission is an elected board. In this case, what they're trying to do is the property located on Westboro Road is under the care and custody of the Board of Selectmen, which is why the Cemetery Commission is before you this evening. However, if the Cemetery Commission wanted to go acquire land, say somewhere else that was privately held, the commission would then just sponsor an article and then go to town meeting to seek those funds.
That was my question. Okay, so really our only connection to this is the Westboro Road property.
Yes. Now, for us is that we would like to acquire state help and guidance on planning development of a parcel. They won't talk to us about any parcel until such time as we have property rights to that parcel. So they'll talk to us all day long about Lakeview, but they won't talk to us about Westboro Road until we actually have title to it.
What about the Maple Ave cemetery? Is that how deeply have you guys explored that? It seems like that would be something you'd want to explore, but again, it's your discretion.
We are exploring it, but we haven't really begun. We were approached about 3 or 4 weeks ago by one of their committee members to begin a discussion of would we like to have it and what the terms might be.
Yeah.
Basically, the consideration so far is that they would have to transfer the deed they currently hold to the Cemetery Commission. And then we have to deal with what they do with any residual trust funds they have. If any. I don't think they'd be giving it to us if they had much of any reserve, but we haven't got into that yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of, I felt kind of it would derail the subject we have at hand tonight. And I didn't want to focus on this for the time being. It's very important that we have a plan for the long-term future.
So regarding Westboro Road, is there an assessment that would be required? How would we determine a price in a situation like that, Derek, if we did want to sell that parcel? Obviously, the town owns an abundance of land, not that any other than this is viable for a cemetery, but certainly any time we can utilize a town asset effectively for the people to meet multiple needs, that's going to be a good.
So in this situation, the property on Westboro Road was under the care of the treasure collector who had taken that property through tax title. And then what we ended up doing is we found value in that land. And prior to the treasure collector having an auction, we then transferred that land from the treasure collector's care and custody to the Board of Selectmen's care and custody. So the reason why I bring that up is because under other circumstances, the treasurer collector would just hold an auction and then it would be sold to, the highest bidder. In this case, because it's on the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen would then draft a bid specification, and typically you would put in the bid specs the least amount of money you would accept with a bid proposal. So, for example, you would put a bid out and say that you will not take any offers less than $500,000. So, what that does, it very quickly informs those prospective bidders that this is what the town will accept and this is what the town will only accept. And so you're able to basically name your price at that point.
Got it. And there's no existing conservation restrictions. It's not in any special deed restriction that we would need to account for. It's available for us to dispose of.
That is true. The Conservation Commission did ask prior to its transfer, if it were to be transferred, say, to a private entity, that we put an easement on it there for the front, for us, let's say 10-foot easement, because that property does abut the state forest, I believe. And so they were hoping that this could also be another access point to the state forest. And at the time, the Board of Selectmen had made that commitment that prior to any land transfer, they would place an easement for that purpose.
Okay, so that's the kind of thing we would just want to make sure we kept track of and work with other departments to make sure that we're making the best use of that parcel across the interest of the town. That's great. Maureen, go ahead.
Derek, how much is there a lot of wetlands on that property?
From what I understand, the Westboro Road property, that it's fully developable.
It's fully developable?
Yes.
There is a seasonal brook that runs right through the center of it from south to north, which would require some consideration for development. With the cemetery, it would require some consideration for protection. I think Bill can address that better than I can, but
overall, it's not. Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say I've walked the property several times, and the way Glenn.
We lost you, Bill.
That goes through the center of the property. Just how far it extends would be a matter of having somebody do delineation, and I'm sure that must be one of the things that the Cemetery Commission will need to evaluate as part of their, right? So, yes. And then the rear part of the property, and I'm not quite sure where the property ends, but I think there's a portion of the rear property that's actually very steep. But by and large, I would characterize it as flat with some wetlands running through the center of it.
I have another.
Go ahead, Maureen.
Is that an intermittent brook? Is it a runoff brook, or is it a year-round brook?
It looks to me like it's at best intermittent. It may be just more of a wet area as opposed to having an actual stream running through it. There are channels. I've not seen very much evidence of running water, but I'm sure there's running water from time to time.
Okay.
Great. So I don't expect that we need any motion or decision on this tonight, right? This is sort of the initial proposal for us to think and talk about. So why don't we pick that up and do that? Is that fair?
I can live with that.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, great. Any other questions? If not, we will move on to discussion items and some approval of ABCC renewals. I don't know, Derek or Sandy, if you want to walk us through those. I think we need a review and an approval or motion for each one of these separately. Is that right, or can we do them in all?
You could do a motion for the alcohol licenses. This is only the alcohol licenses renewals.
Yeah.
the ABCC requires these to be completed each year by November 30th. And that's why we're just doing these. And in your meeting in December, we'll do all the rest.
Got it. And there's no new, obviously by definition, renewals are existing licenses that are out there, and these are all businesses operating with no changes to their existing license.
Yes. The only exception in terms of the renewals, I have not yet heard from the Nipmuc Rod and Gun Club, and I have sent them 3 notices that they need to do this before November 30th. So we may run into a problem with that because you're not meeting again until December, and which would mean that they would have to reapply for their license from the get-go.
Got it.
So my recommendation would be to approve to renew all the other licenses at this time.
With the exception of Nipmuc Rod and Gun.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Steve, Maureen, questions? Or if not, I'll take a motion.
I do have a question on the documentation that's attached. I do see Nipmuc Rod and Gun Club on here.
Yes.
It says, I guess it's just not signed. Is that just the blank application, Sandra?
Yes, that's correct. The ABCC provides us with all the renewal forms, and they need to be signed before they can be renewed.
Okay. There's nobody else in town that's missing on this list?
Correct.
Okay. And on the motion, Maureen, I don't want to cut you off if you have any questions, but on the motion, I did jot down the names of the license holders. Did you want that in the motion, each one of them read off?
Right, you can do one motion and read off the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 licensees, and then make that contingent upon all the paperwork or the requirements being completed before issuance.
Okay.
And that would be having them have their no outstanding taxes and code enforcement regulations, inspections, fire safety.
Okay, did you want all that in the motion, or you want just pursuant
No,
to?
you can just say with contingent upon meeting all requirements.
Okay. Okay. I
Maureen?
can make a motion if we're ready.
Yep.
Good?
Good.
Okay. Okay. I make a motion that we renew the liquor licenses according to the APCC regulations for the Country Club Super, the Rose Garden, 118 Main Street Kitchen and Spirits, Liquor Plus, Red Rock Grill and Bar, Selenius Cellars, Inc., Colonial Liquors. And those licenses are to be approved pursuant to all other regulations and necessities according to the license. Stephen Mettellian, aye.
Maureen Gwinnell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. With that, we will hand it over to Chief Bradley to talk about a grant approval. Chief?
Hi, good evening. So before you tonight, you have a supplemental grant that is added on to our FY21 911 support and incentive grant. This is an additional $74,505 that we've applied for and have been awarded to complete what I call phase 2 of our communication center upgrade. And this applies to our partner in Hopedale, which we will be able to provide them with a new console and radio resources that will be more reliable and that will have better connection between our two centers.
Great. Excellent. As always, we love it. This is a good one, and it's obviously anything we can do to help neighboring towns and also bring some revenue in and have additional support is great. Any questions or comments, Steve or Maureen? If not, I'll take a motion.
Just one quick
I
question.
move,
Just one quick question, I guess, for you, Chief. So I see the total value of the grant, and the amendment to the grant is a $74,505. So I'm assuming that that's just one-time money, that $74,505 for the radio equipment?
That is correct. Much like last year, we were approved for a one-time increase in our support and incentive grant. Last year, we received one-time money totaling $165,000. And this year, we're receiving an additional one-time $74,500.
Okay, great. Thank you, and excellent work as always.
Thank you.
Great. I'll take a motion.
I would move, first of all, great job, Chief Bradley. We can always use the money. I'll make a motion to accept the FY21 911 award and execute the contract. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I second the motion. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Next, we have a motion to accept, looks like a $240 donation to the Upton Food Pantry. And this is coming from Mission Saints Sergius and Bacchus as a donation. So I will take a motion.
I would make a motion that we accept a donation in the amount of $240 for the Upton Senior Center Food Pantry, and that is from the Mission Saints Sergius and Bacchus. And again, that's the amount of $240. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Next, we have a motion to declare property surplus, town property surplus. This is like it's related to a vehicle. Is there somebody that wants to talk about this?
This is a police cruiser that we would need to declare as surplus so that we can put it up for auction.
Okay.
Great. This is a 2013 Ford Explorer for anybody that's interested.
And Derek, just a quick question. Do we have a rough idea? Do we have a reserve that we'll put on this before it goes to auction?
That's a great question. I will take any recommendations that you have.
Maybe we'll take that offline, Steve. You can work with that to make sure that we get
I certainly don't want to meddle in the town's business. It would break my heart to see it go for $500, right? Not be able to bid on it.
And as you pointed out, we had done a similar type of auction a couple of years ago, and we didn't touch as much as we expected, so we put it back out for auction again, and we actually were able to receive what we expected. So, yeah, happy to take any recommendations to put a minimum bid on that auction.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'll take a motion.
Very good. I make a motion that we declare this old police cruiser, 2013 Ford Explorer, as surplus equipment and allow it to be auctioned off on the town's behalf. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Next up, we have a motion to accept the deed for 0 Grove Street. Derek, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so what's before you this evening is the deed that is part of a multi-step process to go ahead and acquire the parcel of land located at 0 Grove Street. So once we have this executed, we'll forward this along to the attorney, who will then go ahead and set up a closing date, along with a few other documents that are necessary prior to closing. We haven't set up a closing date as of yet. We're still working with Conservation Commission and a few others to make sure that we buttoned up any loose ends prior to formalizing a closing date.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Steve, Maureen?
No.
Go ahead, Steve.
Just looking for my mute button here. I don't have an attachment. I don't actually see what the deed looks like. I would assume it's got the book and page and all that on it, Derek?
It does, if I can pull it up. Give me a second here. It does have all that. Give me a second. So here is the deed. Highlighted the acquisition amount, as you pointed out, has the book and page in the second paragraph. Has the meets and bounds as necessary. So we're just filling some of this stuff here, and then on the back side is where the board will then go ahead and provide the signatures.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you could just email that to us. I'm unable to, or for some reason I can't open it.
Okay, I'll forward that right now.
Do you want to be able to take a closer look at that, Steve? I know we'd have to post and have an administrative meeting if we don't approve it now, but I want to make sure that you're satisfied with what's there. Or if you have questions or concerns that we address them.
Yeah, typically I do like to kind of just peruse those type of documents before I approve them. If we have an administrative session, we can certainly just put it on the agenda then. However, you know, I don't want to be a fly in the ointment. I just on my own curiosity and just to dot my I's and cross my T's, I just like to make sure that I've read it and you know that it all makes sense. If any resident had a question, I'd like to make sure that I have a good answer.
Yeah.
So I would be more comfortable being able to read it real quick.
Okay. Do we want to go ahead, Derek?
No, I was just going to recommend, I think that's where you're going, that we can always place this on the December 1st agenda. I don't anticipate a closing prior to December 1st anyway. So, you know, if you'd like to wait until December 1st to review it, but you know, we can work around that.
Yeah, I think that would be best. Similar. I mean, anytime we have questions on these things, there's no reason to rush it through. And if there is, then we can, you know, do what we need to schedule a meeting or what have you. It doesn't sound like we need to do that in this case, but I think that's fair and reasonable. And you know, as a you know, I think we always strive to get all these documents out. They're usually attachments here, so you know, this one wasn't, but typically they are. So let's why don't we push this to December 1st?
I actually am going to have kind of the same question regarding the next agenda item where I can't see those snow operators rates. So I would have the same concern on that one as well. But yeah, by all means, if we just move this to December 1st.
Yeah. Any reason we can't do that, Derek?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
The holidays coming up, I don't see us closing prior to that time anyways.
Okay. Very good. Solarize Plus program. Mr. Taylor, is that you?
That is me.
Great. Thank you.
And so I'm here seeking a letter of support for the program from the Board of Selectmen. It's something, and I've drafted something, I'd probably wordsmith it a little bit more, and on the back of it include more descriptive information about the 5 different technologies we're offering and about the vendors that we are, the installers that we have selected for the program. So in any case, the towns of Mendon and Upton have working together to offer the Solarize Mass Plus program to its residents and small businesses. The Solarize Mass Plus program is a program offered by the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. And we applied to participate and were accepted into it. And they have offered us up to, I think, between the two communities, up to $10,000 for marketing. I have to say it's been a bit of a challenge in this COVID environment to get the word out about the program. And we were talking to some other communities, Melrose, if I remember correctly, and they got a little bit of a bump with their program when they had the mayor and their board support it. So we would take a letter like this and distribute it to all citizens in one way or another as a way of getting the word out about the program. And under the program, we're offering 5 different clean energy technologies from vendors that were vetted by a volunteer committee with help from a consultant in the business that the Mass Clean Energy Center provided to us. So that's one ask. The other ask is I have a picture of some yard signs that we've had made up, and I'd like to put those out on some town property. Again, as another way to let citizens know that the program exists, and just basically another way to get the word out. We do have a banner, which is basically has the same text as the yard sign, and I would actually like to put that either on the town common or on the lawn in front of the library.
Fantastic. This is great. We've done this before. There's been various programs, right, that we've brought to town. So it's always good to bring these in and sort of refresh that and get the new tranche of people that are interested and able to do this in. So thanks for coordinating and leading all this effort, Bill. Maureen, Steve, questions, comments?
No, I think it's a very good idea.
Yes, I agree, Bill. Solarize is a good program. I guess just a quick question. In the briefing that you have in front of us, there's a couple of different things. Again, heat pumps, solar hot water, solar photovoltaic panels. To access that, you would go through the website, and that would get you just for residents that are curious about the program. That's how they would contact those potential services.
Yes, that's the easiest way to do it. There's you can go online, learn more about the technologies, and also submit a request for a free assessment. And that will get directed to whatever technology installer you're interested in. And then the letter itself, like I said, on the back of it will have more information about the technologies and the installers, and there'll be telephone numbers and email addresses that they could use to contact the installers as well.
Okay. And about how many of those yard signs did you have that you wanted to get up in town?
Well, right now I have a supply of 10 of them. I'm looking maybe for 5 right now, and then as we start doing installations around town, they'll get displayed in the yards of the business or the homes that are having the installations.
Mm-hmm. And then, sorry, okay. And with regard to the signs, certainly there's a lot of people posting a lot of signs for advertisements and all that, and I'm all for that. It's not my personal favorite thing, but regardless, I'm just mindful of the signs and how long they're going to stay out and at what point they get picked up. So, and particularly with a banner downtown, certainly think about, when it goes up, how long it goes up, if it needs to be maintained, if it, rips or falls over or whatever, which I know you would do anyway, but just something to be mindful of, that's all.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm happy to come back at future meetings to talk about, if you want to talk about moving them, taking them down, I'm happy to engage in that.
Of course.
Brett, were you almost thinking maybe not for the holiday season? Is that what you were thinking?
Well, I'm not sure what I haven't talked with the folks that are going to be putting up. I think there's going to be a display put up on the town common for the holidays, and so I am mindful of that. So, you know, it would. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't know. We'd have to look at it, but so yes, I'm thinking about that as well as just in general. Yeah. Yeah, Bill, when were you looking to put these out? Is it now? Is it in the spring? I don't know what the timing is.
Yeah, so well, sooner rather than later. I also recognize that we're coming up on a holiday season, and I want to try to be careful about stepping on that. I think well, there's a couple of places I think where there'd be fairly innocuous. Like, for example, the island at the end of North Street.
Yeah.
So, and maybe it does make sense in terms of downtown to wait until after the holiday season is over. So early, the banner maybe early January, sometime in January, in front of the library.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, there's been a banner there for a while, so that seems like that would be a good place too.
And then the other place, and this probably has the construction that's going on there probably has some bearing on this, and that would be somewhere in one of these small islands at the intersection of School, High, and Hopkinton and Westboro.
Yeah. The other spot I've seen a lot, just because we drive by it all the time, Steve, is the end of Grove Street there, where sort of Grove and Mendon come together. There's an island there that is another option place to put signs. But okay,
yeah.
Well, we'll trust your judgment based on that feedback. Any other questions or comments?
No, I have none.
Okay. Maureen's good. Okay. Great. Do we need any motion on that, or is that really a public service memo?
I think you probably have to formally approve putting signs up on town property. At least that's the way I understand the sign bylaw.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Okay.
Take a motion.
Okay, I would make a motion that we authorize this Mendon Upton Solarize Mass Plus program, the authority to put up the signs that we've discussed earlier and the banner that we discussed earlier up on town-owned properties. Stephen Mattellion, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Thank you. Next is discussing a potential use of conservation fund money to purchase a parcel of land, an MG Kane parcel.
Yeah.
Who's going to talk about that?
I'll turn it over to Bill in a minute, but my name's Christine Scott, chairperson of the Conservation Commission and member of the Open Space Committee. And we're looking to use funds that we have in the Conservation Fund to acquire this parcel under the Conservation Act. And so Bill can talk about the importance of this parcel.
Yeah, so I've had a chance to visit the parcel, so I'll tell you more about that. And then I think either Christine or Mike Penko will talk about how the conservation will acquire or attempt to acquire it. The parcel is located off William Street, near, it's on the, actually, if you're familiar with Lakeside Machine, the parcel comes out onto William Street between the Lakeside Machine sign and the railroad tracks. It's about 1.7 acres and 1.7 acres between the tracks and Whitehall. Lake Whitehall? That doesn't sound right for some reason.
Lake Wildwood.
Wildwood, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so Lake Wildwood. There is a trail on it already. There's also a place where you can get to Lake Wildwood and put a kayak or a canoe into the water. The primary interest buying it is that there are trails on private property to the west that connect to trails to Grafton Conservation Land. There's about 400 acres of Grafton Conservation Land behind Dairy Drive in that area. So the purpose is to create the opportunity to connect to those trails from William Street at some point. There's the parcel itself has about 8 feet of frontage on William Street between the driveway for Lakeside Machine and the railroad tracks. The owner of the town did approach us, the town, about selling it. He sent a note to Derek, who forwarded it to the Open Space Committee. So in any case, we're going to make him an offer based upon a price of roughly $6,000, and then pay for whatever transaction costs they are out of the conservation fund. But I'm going to let Mike and Christine talk more about that process.
Okay, I just wanted to add to the conversation that we understand that there's a lot of open space that was just acquired by the town, but these parcels are things that come up that we can't predict. And when a developer wants to offer one that has use for another area of town, it's well worth buying. And Mike, what did you want to add?
Good evening, folks. I think I'd just like to add a couple things. One is that the Conservation Fund currently has around $28,000 in it, so there are ample funds to acquire this parcel. The Conservation Commission voted to expend $6,500 plus expenses out of the Conservation Fund for the acquisition at our meeting on October 14th. But we want to run this by the Board of Selectmen for your thoughts and basically your approval, although the Commission, Conservation Commission Act allows the Commission to purchase property out of the Conservation Fund without going to town meeting or any other approvals. But still, I think we want your blessings for this acquisition. I think it's a forward-thinking acquisition, as Bill explained. There'd be potential for, in the future, connection to a large trail system in Grafton, plus also probably a trail along the Lake Wildwood shoreline. Also, by town purchasing this, we do, prevent, there's been no talk about this first, I should say first off, there's been no talk about this, but the parcel is adjacent to the railroad. And you could probably guess what I'm thinking. It could have some potential use from the railroad. So we would short circuit anything like that. Not that that's been talked about at all, but it would short circuit that possibility. I guess any questions for any of us, please?
I do.
Yeah, this is for whatever it would be with the transaction cost, $6,000 or $8,000. I've walked on this parcel and looked at it very closely. It's got an existing trail system on it. It does run right along the railroad, so the railroad runs, next to it. It's a very long, thin parcel between the railroad and Lake Wildwood, but it does have, I don't know how many hundreds of feet that is, but it's several hundred feet of lakefront or waterfront shoreline access, places to launch canoes, to camp, to fish. So it's certainly an interesting piece, and for the price, I don't certainly would trust the discretion of the Conservation Commission on how to proceed. But certainly it would for the price. I think it's well worth it, given that it gives you access to that 400 acres of land. Go ahead, Maureen.
Are the taxes up to date on that parcel?
I don't know for sure. I believe so.
What is the assessed value, Bill?
You know what? I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get that information.
Okay.
And in the meantime, just to mention that this is a part of town that does not have a lot of hiking access to land that the town owns. And there's also the horse property off of 140 that can use this area.
I mean, the only thing I'm thinking is the driveway for Lakeside Machine, wouldn't that be privately owned? And if the property's only 6 feet wide from the driveway, let's say to the railroad tracks, I don't know, would residents have any ability to actually park and use that property on its own? I guess that would be one question I had. And then I recall being a kid riding through there way back in the day, and I think you have to basically take the railroad tracks themselves to get into Grafton. So yeah, certainly it's not a lot of money. I'm just trying to raise a few questions, and then from my perspective, timing is everything. It certainly isn't a lot of money the way when you look at a municipal budget of 24.7 million or wherever we're at. $6,000 or $7,000 isn't a lot of money by any stretch. It's just, for me, it's really a matter of timing. I'm just not sure this is a good time to talk about something like this, where we just got out of, special town meeting and spent, $450 odd thousand on a couple of parcels of land. Or no, I guess it wasn't quite that much. But between the warrant articles on that particular warrant, probably $425 or so thousand. So I just don't know if it's a good time to talk about this particular acquisition. But to answer if somebody could answer my first two questions is, can you access Grafton without actually having to walk the railroad tracks? That's the first question. And then second question is, do you have any ability to park on the property the way it sits currently?
I can answer the railroad question. We've done some research on it. We reached out to the Grafton Land Trust. They have a trail map which shows a trail crossing the railroad, but they aren't sure if an easement exists. The trail crosses the railroad at the gas line, so you would need to cross the railroad to access all this Grafton open space. And we don't have an answer at this point whether there's any kind of an easement. But again, the trail is shown on a trail map.
And for sure, there's no parking other than what would be available on Dairy Drive. So when I walked it, I parked on Dairy Drive and walked down. There's no direct access from the 8 feet of frontage on William Street. So you do have to walk up the tracks a little bit and take a right onto the trail to sort of go down into that. There is a trail running through there, Steve, once you get onto it, that runs all along Wildwood. So, if we wanted people to be able to access it by parking on Dairy Drive and walking down without going on railroad property, we would need to cut a small path from the road to where the path is. It wouldn't be hard to do, but it doesn't exist currently in its present state.
That's exactly right. And for Maureen, the property is currently assessed at $20,400.
What a deal. Okay. Questions, other comments? Otherwise, I will take a motion or additional discussion. Go ahead, Derek.
I just want to bring up that I'm going to have to work with the Conservation Commission. There's a number of administrative items that have to get accomplished, such as executing a purchase and sale agreement, looking at the outstanding taxes that are owed, reviewing the title itself, and then ultimately, when all that is complete, this will come back to the Board of Selectmen. as we talked about with accepting the Zero Grove Street deed, the Board of Selectmen in concert with the Conservation Commission will both accept this deed as well. So Mike had pointed out that the Conservation Commission has the authority to forego town meeting for this authorization, and it's true. They don't need town meeting authorization to acquire property. However, they do have to work with the Board of Selectmen to acquire property because it's the Board of Selectmen that will be accepting the deed and then executing the purchase and sale.
And there's one thing I just wanted to add, that there's a park that the town owns that's off of William Street that goes to Lake Wildwood. So I'm just wondering if people could park in that parking lot and then walk to get to the trail system.
Yeah, I think that's in between a different parcel, though. I'm not sure if that connects or not, but that's a good point.
They could for sure park there. They'd have to walk down William Street again and then walk up the railroad a little bit to get to that trail. If we did cut the trail through the frontage, certainly you could park on Dairy Drive, or you could, that's a great point, Christine, also park in the existing Wildwood land, which is a nice park area with picnic benches, some open space, and some nice fishing spots. And there's, probably 10 to 15 easy parking spots in there that people could use to access this property.
I guess the only comment I would make is if we do have to revisit this to actually execute a deed, it'd be nice to have a map. If maybe we could delay approving this until we have the map up and we can do it all on December 1st. Maureen, do you have any thoughts on that? Brett, any thoughts? Just
Well, we don't do anything until we have a deed and a purchase and sale agreement. This is basically, if I'm correct, is to support the purchase of it. But until, like Derek said, until we have a purchase and sale and there's a deed, and then we take the motion to accept or not to accept. Right now, I don't believe the board can do anything.
okay. So there's no action required at this point?
I don't believe so.
I think what's important for everyone to know that the board is going to support this in advance of going through this administrative process of getting the PNS, obtaining the title, so that when we do come back to accept the deed, everybody is supportive of this.
Yeah,
I think we can say that we're supportive of it.
Yes.
I, as one, am supportive of it.
Yep, I am as well.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Great. Thank you all very much, as always. Next, we have the discussion of the annual town meeting date. Derek, do you want to talk about? Oh, go ahead.
I can talk about that, but before the Conservation Commission gets off, there was one other parcel of land that we needed to discuss because I figured we'd get it done now. Again, there would be no formal acceptance at this point. Again, I would have to, if the board supports this, I'd have to go through the administrative process and transferring the ownership from the existing owner to the town. This is, as you all remember, the town at town meeting accepted Blueberry Lane and Dogwood Drive as public ways. There were two parcels of land, I'm going to pull them up real quick, that, if I can find them, that was supposed to be a part of the land transfer of those two now public roads. And I've highlighted them here. You can see there's a parcel B, it's an arrow and a very small sliver of land, and that is entering Dogwood. And then there's a parcel A to the left, and again, it's kind of this odd shaped parcel of land. Before we went ahead with the formal land transfer with the developer of this subdivision, I sought the advice of the Conservation Commission to determine whether or not this is something that we should pursue. And I know they had a formal vote on it, so I'd like to turn it over to them so that you can hear their presentation. And then again, if the board supports it, I can go ahead with the land transfer.
We did vote to support this and felt that it was useful in the case of accessing the river to get a kayak in.
Yeah, so the section of land on the bottom part there, actually, yeah, and that comes out on, that has frontage on Centerbrook, I think it's called. Yep. So yeah, you could get in there and put a kayak in Centerbrook. I actually think it ends up becoming one parcel. I think it was two parcels because Dogwood actually was intended to come out on Station Street there. That didn't happen. So I think that whole strip is all one parcel at this point. Not that it makes any real difference. But the real value of it is the fact that it gives people access to Centerbrook. It's otherwise, I think, otherwise unusable. And the developer has offered it to the town for free. So.
Okay, very good.
And we used to be under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I would support that. That seems fine. The price is right, certainly.
Just a quick question. I think I understand where that parcel is now. So it's actually, if you're on Station Street, it would be that parcel of land on the other side of the railroad tracks.
Yep.
I was told by a resident, was that supposed to be a walking trail through there?
Well, there is a walking trail on the other side of the tracks. Yes. Yeah. So this is along Station Street and directly across the part that is closest to Centerbrook is the Station Street pump station.
Okay, I thought for some reason that there was supposed to be some sort of access for the neighborhood to use that piece of land to get to either some open space or get to Centerbrook, one or the other. Did I have that? Do I have that right or wrong?
Well, if the development had gone as originally planned, they would have had access to the trails on the other side of the tracks by walking over, I guess it would be Blueberry. Blueberry would have crossed over the tracks. And that would have given the whole neighborhood on that side of the tracks access to all of the walking. There are trails on the other side, which is the meat of the development.
Okay.
So at this point, I think what we may find might be possible is that you might be able to walk under the tracks along Centerbrook. We have to take a closer look at that, and it would probably depend upon how much water was running. But there is a culvert that goes under the tracks there.
Okay, right where Centerbrook intersects the railroad tracks.
Yep.
I see.
There's only a few hardcore outdoors men and women that would go to get the conservation land, but I know a few of them are on this call.
That would consider going underneath the set of railroad tracks, right, Brett?
Exactly. Steve and I out there, army crawling through the culvert next week.
Oh yeah, I got to take a walk under that.
I know. Legally, we can't give people permission to walk over the tracks, but under the tracks is another question.
Exactly. Love it. So yeah, I certainly would support this from my perspective.
Great.
Yeah, it almost seems almost administrative. It's such a small piece. No money transfer. Does it accrue any tax revenue, just out of curiosity, for the town? It would be dollars a year, or what would it even be? Negligible?
Yeah, negligible.
Yeah.
And it would be 0.1 of an acre or something?
I have to double check that to see what that is for square footage. I'm not sure.
Just curious. It's really not pressing. You can fire it off in an email. That's fine.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. It's tough to tell. Okay, we'll send that to you.
just curious on the map, it's always hard to tell what, is it 50 feet long? Is it 100 feet long? It's just hard to tell. I'm good with that.
Okay, great. Derek, you want to talk about the annual town meeting date?
Yes. So, so as you all know, last annual town meeting, because of the pandemic, we moved to the latter part of June. And as we head into the budget preparation season, we're really trying to lean forward the better part of 6 or 7 months and try to predict, what environment we're going to be working under, and more importantly, what constraints we're going to be working under. And so I'm asking for your consideration to move what is already scheduled for the first Tuesday of the May annual town meeting to a later date in June. I'm thinking at least 4 weeks out, so maybe the first Tuesday of June. And the reason being is, one, it'll give us more time to prepare this year's budget in the face of potential decreased state revenues that not only we will be trying to understand, but I would say more importantly, what the schools really need to know so that they can shape their budget. And as the total budget almost 60% goes directly to the schools, I think it'd be more advantageous that we consider delaying it at least those 30 days. And so it's for that purpose. And then for the other purpose is that if we were to have to hold another outdoor town meeting, I do think the weather would be more optimal in June versus then in May. And so for those two primary reasons, I'm seeking your advice as to potentially moving it from May to June. And so before you answer that question, I think it's important that we at least make that decision, if not tonight, certainly by December 1st, because that's going to drive our budget costs. I do anticipate that Kenny Costa and I, we met over the weekend, we plan to have a joint meeting with Finance Committee so that we can present our projected expenses and our projected revenues for FY22, but we do know that this year's budget process may be a moving target, and that we may have to do this. We may have to build the budget multiple times, meaning that we may have to build it once and then see what the revenues come in at, and they have to rebuild it based upon new numbers that come in from the state. So for those reasons, we're going to need probably more flexibility this year than ever before as far as we go through this budget cycle.
So, I think as evidenced by precedent, there's flexibility to move these meetings in whatever way makes the most sense. And I think you addressed this to some degree. I don't know that we need to do it too early, other than your talk of sort of how you will manage the budget cycle and preparation. What I also, at the same time, for me personally, like, I'm not a big fan of pushing off a deliverable by a month, 6 months in advance, because then everybody's just going to take that time and it's going to get swallowed up and we're not going to get anything out of it. But if we can use that month to do something effective and essentially proceed as though we were having a May meeting, so that we have the department heads putting together their budget, so that we have more time to talk about it and discuss it. And to your point, as we get more information, tweak it, then I'm all for that. What I wouldn't want to do is say, okay, now that the meeting's in June and not May, let's push everything out by a month starting in January and not require or ask for budgets for 30 days after because we've moved the date. So no big deal either way. That's just my instinct. But Steve, Maureen, what's your take?
Well, I think we should keep the same timeline as far as the budget process goes, but at least if you've got that extra month, you have a better forecast of the revenues.
Yeah.
And you can tweak the budget before we go to town meeting then.
Yep. You said that so much more clearly than I did. Stick to the budget time.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we stick to the same budget timeline as both of you have previously mentioned. I think for myself, it's always frustrating because we feel like we're on schedule and we have our budget in order. And unfortunately, it seems like the school budget is really up in the air almost till the 11th hour. So I'm not sure that we'll need a full month to delay our annual, but certainly we'll just keep discussing it and we can fine tune it as necessary. As you mentioned, Derek, really the receipts and revenues are going to be, an integral part to building the budget this year. I suspect it'll be challenging, but I'm usually wrong, so who knows? But sure, we can keep discussing it and see what works best.
Okay.
And of course, hopefully there'll be no big surprises, from any one department or either school district.
Yeah. Derek, is that helpful enough? It sounds like you want to decide, even at the next meeting. So I think, at least having a discussion here will give us a couple of weeks to think about it, and then we can come back on December 1st and talk about it again.
No, I think what I'm hearing is that there's latitude to move it out 30 days, but let's maintain our current cadence, and let's stay on that schedule. Which we met with the department heads this morning, and we still plan on having our budget submitted by Christmas, which would then turn around our first public budget presentation mid to third week of January, and that really becomes a starting point. I think where I was getting concerned is that usually that first budget pass, there are then minor modifications from there. I suspect that first budget pass may require a second budget pass and force us to go back to the departments and ask them to resubmit. And so I guess it's kind of like that second phase that we don't typically have, that we may have to include this year, which is why I was bringing this up. But I totally agree with everybody. Let's stay on the current battle rhythm, and let's just keep moving forward, and then we can adjust accordingly as things go. And then, Steve, to your point, it'll be in writing, and Ken Costa and I had this conversation. We don't believe that there's any flexibility in this year's budget to consider new initiatives. And so that's already been articulated to at least the departments under the Board of Selectmen's authority, and some of the other elected committees and boards understand that as well. But again, they will present their budgets directly to the Finance Committee.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any recognition? If
I have
not,
nothing.
Okay. I mentioned this at the town meeting, but I'll also mention it here. The amount of work that was done in very short order to pull off an outdoor town meeting, even if it, even given the amount of time, it was done extraordinarily well. It was very professional. The space was great. The audio visual was fantastic. The mics worked. The lighting was good. The temperature was good. The flow of getting people in and out was good. It was just managed excellently across the board, down to all the details. And it can be frustrating when everybody's under the gun, but everybody pulled together and really did a great job. So it was humbling to be a small part of that process and to see all the great work that everybody did and pulled off. I got a lot of feedback from people on the idea that having the meeting outdoors was great. They thought the meeting went well and ran well, and there was great participation and dialogue back and forth. So thanks again to everybody involved in conducting that and performing and planning and running and executing it and cleaning up and dealing with all of those logistics. It was pulled off flawlessly.
Yeah, and I guess I would also make mention of a pretty sizable crowd that we had, so good participation. I think that was nice to see, regardless of what the outcome of the articles were. I thought that there was a surprisingly large crowd. Although I think somebody had mentioned that. Somebody predicted that, didn't they? I'm not sure who that was.
Oh, we don't want to hear it.
I was just going to mention it. I'm like, there's some people sort of knew there was going to be a lot of folks. Yeah, awesome. You nailed that. You nailed that one.
Usually
Steve.
wrong on my guesses.
You did. You got that one, Steve.
Got it. So love it. All right, Derek, do you want to update us on town manager report?
Yeah, sure. So, as you know, you're following the daily case count tracker for COVID, but I want to bring this locally just so you guys have a sense of where we are here in the town. Right now, to date, we've had approximately 64 total cases of COVID. As of today, we have 14 active cases that are currently being pursued and case managed by the Board of Health's public health nursing staff. They did tell us that unlike the springtime period, many of the cases they're seeing today, these individuals are presenting with mild symptoms. So that is, although we're seeing an uptick in new cases, that is some silver lining that folks aren't having serious health consequences because of these new infections. But that being said, in the community, BBT has recently closed its doors. They're going to spend the next couple of weeks doing some deep cleaning. This amended Upton Regional School District is still maintaining a hybrid model, which is important. And then, as you all have read in the media, the state is expecting to see its first allocation of vaccine early to mid-December. That could either be the Pfizer cash or the Moderna cash. So that remains to be seen. But because of that, the Board of Health Office, they will be exercising their emergency dispensing site plan, which is, it's been a plan that's been in place since approximately 2004, 2005. It's a plan to mass vaccinate the town's entire population in a very quick fashion. This year, they're going to exercise that plan over at the Nipmuc High School. And unlike previous years, they would do it inside the gymnasium. This year, they're going to do it as a drive-through vaccination exercise because they're anticipating if they do get the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, that is going to be the model that they use to vaccinate the general population. Having folks drive through, like the testing sites have done, have folks drive through, and then at that point they'd be vaccinated. So more to come on that, but they are in close communication with the State Department of Public Health to prepare the town for that occurrence. And then aside from that, the Board of Health Office still does have its annual influenza vaccine and is still offering free flu shots to those that are interested. Moving on from there. One other thing too, just as a side note, the fire department has reported that it has plenty of PPE in inventory, and they don't anticipate falling out of those reserves anytime soon. So we feel like we're prepared on that end as well as the cases continue to rise. I wanted to report that, so as you know, we continue to work with the Capital Budget Committee on capital improvement planning. We have a 10-year capital plan that really projects kind of our rolling stock and our assets. The DPW director has done an infrastructure analysis, which has recently been presented to you all. So we have a good sense of our water, wastewater infrastructure capital needs. We have a good sense of our department's capital needs, but we are working very closely, Kelly and I, with Maya to receive a $16,000 grant that is going to identify, it's going to do an analysis of our 3 large buildings, the fire department, the police department, and town hall, and it's going to do a complete analysis from foundation to roof of all the capital needs that go into keeping a building operating over an extended period of time. So we will let you know when that grant is awarded, but again, that's just going to be another tool in our capital improvement plan toolbox that will be able to project out expenses over an extended period of time. Moving on to the DPW, the Powell Street Bridge has been delayed. The current projection is to be reopened in 2 weeks. But when you do see that bridge reopen, you'll notice that the final top coat of asphalt will not be placed on this winter, given the fact that we're heading into the winter months. So we'll just have to bind the coat down, and then we'll come back in the spring to finish the top coat. Online permitting began today, so the code department has started the online permitting program. Diane Judd, who manages that program, is really excited that that's happening because she's been getting inundated with permits, and this should certainly make things more efficient. So Kelly and Diane have been jointly working on that to get that thing up and running in really less than 2 months. So kudos to both of them to pull that off. The town clerk did report today that the presidential election had an 87% turnout, so that's 5,300 votes approximately, with less than 800 folks who were registered that did not vote. So as you know, at our annual elections in May, we typically have between 800 and 900 folks vote. So it was a very strong turnout. And if you have a chance, try to stop by the town clerk's office, and you'll see that it clearly was a monumental task, the work that they had to do to try to, work with the early voting, the mail-in voting. It was a much larger task this year than ever before. So I think they're happily relieved that it's finally over. And then lastly, next Tuesday, the COA, although the doors are closed, they continue to offer programs and services when and if they can. So they have 55 individuals who signed up for a turkey to-go dinner, and that'll be distributed next Tuesday out of the COA for those individuals who signed up. So if you know individuals who would like a turkey to-go meal, please register with the COA, and we'll be more than happy to accommodate. Pending any questions, I'll turn this back to the chair.
Thank you very much. Kelly, what was the total number of folks that cast ballots? I know it was 87%, typical years, 800 to 900. What was the actual number, do you know?
5,328 votes.
Wow.
And as Derek mentioned, we have and that was out of 6,136 registered voters. So the difference was 808. So we had 808 registered voters that did not vote versus that voted.
Is that the highest turnout rate we've had, the 87%?
Yeah, it's definitely the highest amount because our population is going up, so our registered voters go up. So the number is definitely the highest. And I looked back and I saw a couple presidentials at 84%, but I never saw anything higher than that.
So 87%. It's remarkable. Okay, just curious. Great. Thank you for the update, Derek. Any questions, Maureen, Steve, or any parting comments?
Just two quick questions. I'm just curious, getting back to your question on voting. So the last presidential election, would we have had 3,500 votes, or what was that? What did that number look like in 2016? We had, again, 5,300 this year. So what was it back in 2016?
In 2016, the voter turnout was, I believe it was either 82% or 84%. So I'd have to go back and look at the actual numbers, or I can pull it up. But when it comes to actual percentage, this was definitely the highest percentage that I've ever had in my 19 and a half years. So, and the other thing to know that it was a combination of early voting at 1,500, vote by mail probably close to 2,100, give or take, and then election day was 2,100. So it was almost evenly split among the three ways that voters could vote this time. Did that answer your question, Steve?
Yes, it did. I seem to remember seeing either 3,400 or 3,800 at the last election. I was just curious what that number was, but 82% is, again, 87% is a big number, up from 82%. So very, very interesting. And you would think that trend would continue. Derek, just a quick question. You were talking about the senior center meals to go. How long do residents have to sign up for that? Is there another couple of days? Is there a deadline that the residents
I
have?
believe they have until the end of this week to sign up. I believe it's the end of this week.
Okay. So we'll pass that along to friends and, okay. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Is that something that we can advertise or send out a link about, or somehow publicize that to folks in town, similar to what we did with the neighbor to neighbor communication?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yep.
Awesome. We won't make you tell us what you're laughing about, Kelly. I bet it was a good one. Anything else before we wrap up? Steve, Maureen, anything? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Second the motion, Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye. Unanimous action. Thanks, everybody. Good job. Appreciate the time.
Take care.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.